Today we're going to talk about compassionate fibbing. Hi, it's me, Linda Burhans, the gal who cares for the caregivers with love, laughter, and lessons learned. What is compassionate fibbing? You want me to lie to my mother? Is that what you're thinking? Well, this is what happens. A caregiver comes into my support group and she says to me, Mom says she's looking for Dad. She's looking for Dad all over the house. She said, I told her that Dad died 15 years ago. I said, what does your mother do? She said she sits in the chair and cries. She says, but the next day she asked me the same question again, where's Dad? And I tell her Dad died 15 years ago. I say, what does she do? She said she sits in the chair and she cries. I said, do you think this is good? What you need to tell your mom is Dad is at work or Dad went to the store. Because if Mom has dementia, she's not going to remember that in another minute. But she'll be calm thinking that Dad is at the store or Dad is at work. Because when you tell her that Dad died 15 years ago and she can't remember that, every time you tell it to her, it's like the first time she's hearing it. Sometimes they'll get violent when they hear something like that. How could you tell me that my spouse has died? Nobody told me about it. So we want to avoid those kind of things. Just like I said in a tip the other day. If your loved one has to go to the doctor's on Friday, don't tell them on Monday. Don't tell them until like an hour before they're ready to leave to go to the doctor's. Because then they're not anxious all week, and you're not anxious all week as they're asking you 100 times about when they're going to go to the doctor's. Compassionate fibbing, be kind, and go with the flow. You know, my mom had dementia, and she would tell me sometimes that there were squirrels underneath her bed. I knew there were no squirrels underneath her bed, but I would just take a broom and hit it under the bed and tell her they were gone. And she'd be like, thank you, Linda. One time she told me, she would be with me all day. I would pick my mom up at 7 o'clock in the morning till like 7 o'clock at night. And she told me someone keeps coming in her apartment and messing up her papers. Now, my mother lived in independent living. No one was going in her apartment. But next to her phone, she had that stack of sacred papers. You know about those stacks. So by the third day, my mom was still agitated. So I said to her, I'm going to come up to your apartment. I went up to the apartment. After a couple of minutes, I told her I would be right back, and I left, and I went down to the end of the hall, and I just stood there for a little while. And then I came back, and I told my mother, I just met that woman in the hallway, and I told her, if you ever mess my mother's paper again, you're going to answer to me. And she said, thank you, Linda. And it was done. It was done. I didn't want her to be stressed. I didn't want her to be agitated. I didn't want her to be worried. So that's what compassionate fibbing is. Tune in next week for another tip brought to you by Arden Courts, where all they do is memory care, and have a delicious day.